A boy drops his crutches and takes his first steps. But behind this miracle lies a story of loss, love, and redemption. Subscribe and follow this journey. The heavy oak doors of the mansion groaned as they swung open. Adrian Cole, one of the richest and most feared men in America, stepped inside earlier than anyone expected. The evening air still clung to his coat, but what froze him was not the cold outside, it was the sight before his eyes. The marble floor of the grand living room gleamed under the chandelier. Kneeling on that expensive stone was a young woman in a simple apron, scrubbing with a damp rag. Beside her, wobbling on tiny crutches painted purple, was a boy of 5 years old. His blonde hair stuck to his forehead with sweat as he pressed a small cloth against the floor, mimicking her movements. The boy looked up, determination etched on his small face. "Tia Rosa, I can clean this spot," he insisted, his voice trembling as his thin legs quivered under him. Rosa Alvarez, the maid who had been part of the household for barely 2 years, straightened slightly and wiped her brow. "All right, Leo, you've helped enough for today. Go sit on the sofa and rest. Let me finish." But Leo shook his head, gripping his crutch tighter. "I want to help. You always say we're a team." Adrian's chest tightened. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen his son smile like that, unguarded, determined, and proud. Rosa hesitated, then gave in with a faint laugh. "Very well, my little assistant, but just a little longer." Leo's blue eyes lit up as if someone had promised him the world. He took another shaky swipe at the floor, nearly tipping sideways. Rosa reached out instinctively, steadying him. That was the moment Leo noticed the tall figure at the door. His eyes widened. "Dad, you're home early," he exclaimed, almost losing balance as he turned too quickly. The cloth slipped from Rosa's hand. She scrambled to her feet, bowing her head. Her voice faltered. "Good evening, Mr. Cole. I didn't know you would return so soon. I was just finishing the cleaning." Adrian's throat tightened. He stared at the woman, then at his son, then back again. His voice came out harsher than he intended. "Leo, what are you doing?" Leo straightened his back, puffing out his chest like a little soldier. "I was helping Tia Rosa. Look, Dad, today I stood all by myself for almost 5 minutes. Adrian blinked, the words sinking slowly. 5 minutes?" he repeated, his voice low, almost disbelieving. The boy's face shone with excitement. "Yes, Tia makes me practice every day. She says if I keep trying, one day I'll run like the other kids." The room fell silent. Adrian's jaw clenched. He turned sharply to Rosa. She lowered her gaze, her hands tightening on the rag. "Sir, I was only playing with him. I didn't mean to overstep." Leo, sensing his father's sternness, shuffled forward on his crutches. "Dad, Tia Rosa is amazing. She stays when I cry. She tells me I'm strong, like a warrior." Adrian couldn't breathe. How long had it been since he had spoken to his son for more than a few minutes? The shame gnawed at him. He forced his voice to remain steady. "Leo, go upstairs to your room. I need to speak with Tia Rosa." The boy's lips parted, fear flickering in his eyes. "But Dad—" "Now," Adrian said firmly. Leo looked at Rosa, who offered him a small, reassuring smile. With reluctant steps, his crutches clicking against the marble, he made his way up the stairs. Just before disappearing, he called out, "Tia Rosa is the best person in the world." The words echoed through the vast room, leaving Adrian and Rosa in heavy silence. Adrian took a step closer, his voice sharp. "How long have you been making him do these exercises?" Rosa's voice trembled. "About 6 months, sir. Only during my lunch break or after finishing chores. I never neglect my work." Adrian's brow furrowed. "You're not paid for this?" "No, sir. I never expected anything. I just enjoy spending time with the boy." For a moment, Adrian could only stare. His voice lowered. "Why do you say he's special?" Rosa hesitated. Her brown eyes lifted, shimmering with sincerity. "Because he never gives up, even when it hurts. Because his heart is bigger than anyone I've met. He's wonderful, sir." Those words pierced Adrian deeper than any business rival's insult ever had. He realized he had never looked at his son that way. His voice hardened again, almost defensive. "Where did you learn these methods?" Rosa hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. I had a younger brother, Carlos. He was born with weak legs. I spent my childhood learning exercises, going to therapy with him. When I saw Leo so sad, I couldn't just stand by." She lowered her head. "Forgive me, sir, but the boy's lonely. You're always at work." Adrian's throat closed. The truth in her words struck like a blade. "If you wish, I'll stop," Rosa whispered. "I only wanted him to smile more. A child should laugh every day." Adrian's gaze fell to the rag in her hand, to her knees reddened from scrubbing the marble. For the first time in years, his world of steel and glass felt like it was cracking. His voice came quieter now. "Rosa, may I ask you something personal?" Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. "Yes, sir. You clearly have skill. Why are you working here as a maid? Why not in healthcare?" She gave a sad, faint smile. "Because I have no degree. Everything I know is from caring for my brother. It has no official value, and I must work. My mother works nights. My brother still studies. We barely scrape by, so I clean houses." Adrian felt something shift inside him. Shame, admiration, confusion, all at once. He looked at the staircase where Leo had vanished. His son had a light in his eyes tonight that Adrian had not seen in years. A light Rosa had kindled. His voice was low, almost to himself. "Tomorrow, I must be there." He thought of the meetings scheduled for the morning. A call with investors at 8, a board report, contracts waiting. They suddenly felt meaningless. That night, Adrian pushed open the door to Leo's bedroom. The boy was already asleep. His crutches leaned neatly against the bed, as if waiting for tomorrow. Adrian sat at the edge of the bed, staring at his son's small, peaceful face. "How long has it been," he whispered, "since I watched you sleep?" His phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, cancelled every meeting, and sent quick emails to reschedule. For the first time in his life, business could wait. The mansion was silent, but inside Adrian, something had awakened. Tomorrow, at 8 o'clock, he would be in the garden. The marble hallways of the Cole mansion carried no warmth. At night, the echoes of footsteps seemed louder, as though the house itself wanted to remind its owner of its emptiness. Adrian walked slowly across the polished floor, each step accompanied by memories he had buried for years. 3 years earlier, the house had been filled with music, laughter, and the soft voice of his wife, Elena. But her sudden illness had left Adrian with nothing but silence. Since then, the mansion had become a fortress, grand from the outside, hollow within. Adrian had chosen numbers, meetings, and skyscrapers to avoid facing the grief he could not endure. In the quiet of his study, he poured himself a drink, staring at the glass without touching it. His thoughts circled back to what he had seen in the living room, Leo's small body trembling on crutches, his face glowing with pride. Rosa kneeling beside him, steadying him, encouraging him. And then those words that refused to leave Adrian's mind. 5 minutes. He set the glass down untouched. Something was different now. Upstairs, Leo's room was filled with drawings taped on the walls. Crude sketches of superheroes, stick figures running, a child holding hands with someone taller. Most of them were drawn with bright blue crayons. In the center of them all, one picture showed 3 figures, A boy with crutches, a tall man in a suit, and a woman with long hair tied back. Above the drawing, in shaky letters, Leo had written, "Dream Team." Adrian stared at it longer than he had looked at any contract in months. The next morning, he rose earlier than usual, 6:30, when normally he would already be rushing for his car. Instead, he shaved carefully, chose simple clothes instead of a tailored suit, and walked toward the kitchen. The scent of batter filled the air. Rosa was at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced motions. She startled when she saw him. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," she said quickly, adjusting her apron. Adrian's tone was softer than the night before. "Good morning. Is Leo still asleep?" "Yes, sir. He usually wakes at 7:30. We begin exercises at 8. Adrian glanced at his watch. "It was only 7:15. Is there anything I can help with?" She blinked, unsure if he was serious. "Help? With breakfast?" He nodded. "What does Leo like on Monday mornings?" Rosa hesitated, then answered gently. "Pancakes. He says they give him energy to start the week." Adrian gave a short laugh, shaking his head. "Really? I never knew that." She smiled faintly. "He always says so, and it motivates him for training." For a moment, Adrian simply watched her pour batter into the pan. He realized she wasn't just cooking. She was building a small ritual of joy, one that had been absent from his own hands for far too long. At 7:30, small footsteps echoed from the stairs, followed by the clicking of crutches. Leo appeared, his hair tousled, one crutch under each arm. His eyes widened when he saw his father standing by the stove. "Dad?" he exclaimed in surprise. "You haven't gone to work?" Adrian smiled slightly. "Good morning, champ. Today I stayed home to watch you train. Remember?" The boy's face lit up as if the sun had risen just for him. "Really? You'll see how strong I've become?" "Of course," Adrian replied, gesturing to the table. "But first, let's have breakfast." Rosa made pancakes. Leo cheered and hobbled quickly to the table. Throughout breakfast, Adrian observed silently. The boy chattered endlessly, telling stories, laughing with Rosa, bragging about small victories. "Dad, did you know I climbed 3 steps without my crutches?" Leo said, his eyes sparkling. Adrian's brows rose. "Really? That's amazing!" "And I can even do stretching exercises like grown-ups," Leo added proudly. Adrian turned his gaze to Rosa. She lowered her head modestly, but he could see the knowledge in her movements. She knew exactly what she was doing. At precisely 8 o'clock, Rosa led them out to the garden. She spread a mat over the grass, the morning sunlight painting the leaves in gold. "Come on, Leo," she said warmly. "Let's start with stretches." Leo lay down on the mat, imitating every move with focus. Adrian, watching from a chair nearby, felt astonishment with every careful motion. "Very good. Now balance," Rosa instructed. She helped Leo stand, set the crutches aside and steadied him. "Try 30 seconds without them. If you succeed, tomorrow we'll try 45. Leo's chin lifted. "I want to try a whole minute." "Take it slow," Rosa advised. 30 is excellent." Leo let go of his crutches. His legs trembled. Adrian's heart pounded as if his own body were standing unsteady. 15 seconds, Rosa counted. "See that, Dad?" Leo called out, eyes focused forward. "I see it," Adrian replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You're incredible." 25, 30, Rosa finished. Leo wobbled and nearly fell, but Rosa caught him in time. "I did it!" Leo shouted triumphantly. A full 30 seconds. Adrian rushed forward, sweeping his son into his arms. His eyes burned, though no boardroom would ever see him cry. "Leo, I'm so proud of you." The boy beamed, breathless with joy. "Now you understand why I love training with Tia Rosa, right?" Adrian could only whisper, "I understand." Later that day, as Rosa prepared to leave for her long commute home, Adrian stopped her by the doorway. His voice was low, uncertain. "Rosa, thank you." She looked puzzled. For what, sir? For caring for my son when I didn't know how, he answered. Her smile was faint, shy. He's very special. Anyone would love him. Not everyone would have the patience to see him through. Adrian's silence stretched, filled with thoughts he could not yet untangle. That night, when Leo had gone to bed, Adrian returned to his study. The glass of untouched whiskey still sat on his desk from the night before. He pushed it aside and opened his laptop. 3 meetings filled his calendar for the morning. An investor call, a report deadline, a corporate strategy briefing. He stared at them for a long moment. Then, with steady hands, he began cancelling them all. For once, marble and glass towers could wait. Tomorrow belonged to the garden. The next morning arrived clear and sharp, the air still cool with traces of dawn. Adrian Cole stepped into the kitchen earlier than anyone expected. He wore a plain shirt, not a suit, and for the first time in years, his shoes were not polished for business, but scuffed by the stone floor of his own home. Rosa Alvarez was already there, her sleeves rolled up as she sliced fruit for breakfast. She nearly dropped the knife when she saw him. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "you're early again." Adrian nodded once. "Call me Adrian," he replied after a pause, his voice almost unsure. "At least when it's just us." Rosa froze, then quickly lowered her eyes. "Yes, sir. I mean, Adrian." Leo soon shuffled down the stairs, his crutches clicking against the wood. His hair stuck out in all directions, his smile brighter than the sunlight streaming through the windows. "Dad!" he shouted, almost stumbling from excitement. "You didn't leave." Adrian crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "I told you I'd be here. I keep my promises." Leo grinned, wobbling forward on his crutches. "Then come on, we'll be late for training." At 8 o'clock sharp, the 3 of them stepped into the garden. The grass was wet with dew, glistening under the rising sun. Rosa spread out a mat with practiced ease. "All right, Leo," she said gently. "Let's start with stretches." Leo lay down on the mat, pulling at his arms and legs with clumsy determination. Rosa guided him carefully, correcting the angle of his foot, encouraging him when his muscles tensed. Adrian sat on a bench, watching with a mix of awe and disbelief. Numbers, contracts, towers of steel, none of them had ever held his attention like this. After stretches, Rosa helped Leo rise. She steadied him by the shoulders. "Let's practice balance again. 30 seconds today. Tomorrow, maybe 45. Leo puffed his chest. "I want to do a whole minute." Rosa shook her head softly. "One step at a time, little warrior." Leo let go of his crutches, arms outstretched as if balancing on a thin rope. His legs quivered violently. Adrian found himself holding his breath. "Come on, son," he said quietly. "You can do this." Rosa began to count. 10 seconds. 15. Leo's face tightened, sweat running down his temple. "Dad, look at me," he called out. Adrian's voice cracked, but he answered firmly. "I see you, Leo. You're incredible." 25. 30, Rosa finished. Leo toppled forward, but she caught him just before he hit the ground. The boy threw his arms into the air. "I did it," he shouted. 30 seconds again." Adrian rushed forward, lifting him high. "You're stronger than I ever imagined," he said, his chest swelling. "I'm proud of you." Leo laughed breathlessly, his cheeks flushed. "Now you know why I love training with Tia Rosa." Adrian glanced at Rosa, who was kneeling with the crutches in her hands. "Yes," he said quietly. "Now I understand." The morning practices became their new ritual. Day after day, Adrian cancelled meetings, ignored calls, and sat in the garden. He watched his son stretch, stumble, stand, and smile. He watched Rosa guide him with patience that no therapist had ever given. each instruction tailored with affection rather than clinical detachment. One afternoon, as Leo sketched in his room, Adrian asked Rosa to join him in the library. The shelves towered with unread books, the room lined with silence. For once, it felt less like a prison and more like a sanctuary. Adrian stood by the window, his posture stiff. "Rosa," he began, "I owe you more than just gratitude." She looked startled. "Mr. Cole—" "Adrian," he interrupted gently. "Please." Her voice lowered. "Adrian." He drew a long breath. "What you've done for Leo goes beyond your duties. You've given him hope, and you've given it to me as well." Rosa shook her head quickly. "I only did what my heart told me. I never expected anything more than to see him happy." Adrian's gaze softened. "That's exactly why I want to make you a proposal. I want you to become Leo's official companion, not just a maid." Her lips parted, eyes wide. I don't understand." "I want you to dedicate all your time to him. The other housework can be handled by someone else. Your responsibility will be Leo, officially, with recognition and proper compensation." Rosa's hands twisted nervously. "But I don't have a degree. Everything I know comes from helping my brother. That's not enough." "I'll sponsor your education," Adrian cut in. "Tuition, books, everything. You'll study, and meanwhile, you'll stay here with Leo. Your family will be supported as well." Tears welled in her eyes. Why would you do this for me?" Adrian hesitated, his voice softer than he'd ever allowed in business. "Not just for you. For Leo. My son needs you. Not only as a friend, but as a strength I cannot replace. And you deserve the chance to be what you're gifted at." Her head lowered, tears spilling freely, gratitude, fear, and hope mixed in her trembling shoulders. "I won't let you down," she whispered. "I promise to give him everything I have." That evening, as the sun fell and the garden dimmed into shadows, Adrian watched Leo sleeping again. The crutches leaned by the bed as always, ready for tomorrow. His son's chest rose and fell with steady breaths. Adrian realized something powerful. For years, he had built towers that touched the sky, but here, in this house, he was learning how to build something infinitely more valuable, a family. And tomorrow, the garden would call again. News of Leo's progress began to ripple quietly through the circles Adrian Cole frequented. A boy once thought destined to depend on crutches forever was now standing, balancing, and even taking tentative steps. The whispers were curious at first, then dismissive, and finally laced with mockery. For the elite, anything that could not be bought with money was treated with suspicion. The test of this came one evening when Adrian attended a charity gala hosted in a marble ballroom downtown. The chandeliers glittered like frozen stars, the air thick with perfume and carefully rehearsed laughter. Normally, Adrian would have walked into such a room with indifference, but this time he brought Leo and Rosa with him. Leo wore a small suit, his crutches polished and his tie crooked. Rosa dressed in a simple pale blue gown that she had borrowed from a cousin. Against the sparkle of diamonds and silks, her modest dress drew immediate eyes. As they crossed the room, Adrian could feel the weight of whispers. One man leaned toward his wife, his voice intentionally loud. "Strange, isn't it? Adrian Cole, who has everything, letting a servant meddle so deeply in his family." The words carried, striking Rosa's ears like a whip. She lowered her gaze, cheeks burning. Leo tightened his grip on her hand. "Don't be sad, Tia," he whispered quickly. "I know you're the best." Adrian heard it. His blood boiled in a way no corporate insult had ever managed. He stopped walking and turned to face the man who had spoken. His voice was calm, but sharp enough to slice through the chatter of the room. "You say she is just a servant." Adrian said flatly, his eyes steady. That woman accomplished what all the money and the finest doctors could not. She gave my son belief. She made him think he could walk again. If you cannot understand the value of that, then perhaps we have nothing further to discuss. The room fell silent. Glasses stilled mid-air, conversations cut short. The man who had spoken shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding the floor more interesting than his champagne. Rosa's head lifted slowly, her brown eyes shining with gratitude mixed with worry. She had never imagined Adrian would defend her in front of people who once defined his entire world. Later that evening, as they returned to the mansion, Rosa walked a few steps behind, her voice quiet when she finally spoke. "You didn't need to defend me, sir." Adrian slowed his pace. "Adrian," he corrected gently. She hesitated, then repeated softly, "Adrian." "Still, those people will never understand." He stopped at the grand staircase and turned to her. "Let them whisper. My concern is not their approval. My concern is Leo." From the stairs, Leo's small voice chimed in, cutting through the heavy moment. "Dad, you were like a superhero tonight." Adrian crouched to look him in the eye. "And what about you, champ?" Leo grinned. "I'm the little warrior." Rosa smiled faintly, though her heart still pounded from the memory of the stairs. In the days that followed, the tension from the gala lingered. Adrian noticed Rosa moving more carefully around the house, as if trying not to be seen too much. One afternoon, while Leo was occupied with drawing in his room, Adrian found her in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes harder than necessary. "You've been quiet," Adrian said, his voice low. Rosa paused, water dripping from her hands. "I don't want to cause trouble. People already look at me as though I don't belong." "You do belong," Adrian replied firmly, "more than most of them ever will." Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she said nothing more. That weekend, the training sessions grew more intense. Rosa introduced new exercises, small steps between wooden bars, stretches that pushed Leo's endurance. Adrian stayed close every morning, holding his breath with each stumble and cheering with each small victory. One Saturday, Leo managed to walk the length of the bars with only minimal support. At the end, he looked at his father with radiant pride. "Did you see me, Dad? I walked all the way." Adrian swept him into his arms, his voice breaking. "I saw you, son. You're unstoppable." Rosa stood nearby, clapping softly, her face glowing with pride. Yet behind her smile, she still carried the weight of the whispers. The whispers grew louder when a newspaper columnist, eager for scandal, wrote a piece titled, "The Billionaire and the Maid. Has Adrian Cole Lost His Mind?" The article painted Rosa as a manipulator and Adrian as a fool, blinded by grief. When the paper arrived at the mansion, Adrian crumpled it in his fist, his jaw clenched. "They think this will shame me," he muttered. Rosa, standing nearby, whispered, "I'm sorry. I never wanted this to affect you." Adrian's reply was swift. "You have nothing to apologize for. They know nothing of who you are or what you've done." Leo, overhearing, tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, does this mean people don't like Tia Rosa?" Adrian knelt, meeting his son's worried eyes. "Some people don't understand what really matters, but that doesn't change the truth. Rosa is family." The word family lingered in the air, heavier than either adult expected. Rosa's throat tightened, her heart caught between gratitude and fear. That night, unable to sleep, Adrian walked into the garden. The moon cast pale light across the mat where Rosa and Leo trained each morning. He remembered how lifeless this space had once felt, and how alive it had become since Rosa's arrival. He whispered into the night, "Let them talk. I will not lose this." Back inside, he passed by Leo's room and saw his son asleep, arms wrapped tightly around a drawing. Carefully, Adrian lifted the paper. It showed 3 stick figures again, the dream team, but this time above them Leo had written in bold letters, "Together forever." Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the drawing until his chest ached. The price of pride, he realized, was no longer about skyscrapers or contracts. It was about the willingness to stand against the world, to protect the fragile miracle growing inside his home. The next morning, as Rosa entered the kitchen with tired eyes, Adrian spoke before she could start her duties. "Rosa, no more hiding, no more lowering your head. From now on, you walk in this house with the same pride I carry into every boardroom. Do you understand?" She blinked, startled. "But Adrian—" He cut her off. "No excuses. You belong here. Leo knows it. I know it. That is enough." For the first time, Rosa let herself smile fully, though her eyes brimmed with tears. And when Leo stumbled into the kitchen moments later, still half asleep, he looked at them both and declared with a yawn, "Dream team forever." Neither Adrian nor Rosa could argue. The storm that had begun with whispers in the ballroom did not fade. If anything, it grew louder as weeks passed. Stories of Leo's progress reached the ears of people outside Adrian Cole's usual circle. Some were curious, others envious, and one man saw opportunity. His name was Marcus Langford, a magnate with a fortune nearly equal to Adrian's and a reputation for cutting deals sharper than knives. His grandson Thomas had been born with cerebral palsy. Doctors had provided care, therapists had worked tirelessly, but the boy's progress remained slow. Marcus, accustomed to solving every problem with money, heard about Rosa Alvarez through the same whispers that mocked Adrian. One afternoon, Adrian's phone rang in his study. The voice on the other end was gravelly yet commanding. "Adrian," Marcus said, wasting no time on pleasantries, "I've heard about your maid." Adrian's grip on the receiver tightened. "She's not for discussion." Marcus chuckled. "Everything is for discussion. Word is, she's remarkable with children. I want her for my grandson. I'll pay double whatever you're giving her, plus benefits beyond her imagination." Adrian's tone hardened. "She's not for sale." But Marcus pushed. "Think carefully. This could change her life and her family's. Don't you want what's best for her?" Adrian ended the call without another word. Days later, Rosa approached him in the library, her face clouded with uncertainty. "Adrian, may I speak with you?" He set down the papers in his hand, already knowing what was coming. "Marcus contacted you." She nodded. "Yes. They offered me a salary I can't even imagine. They promised to take care of my mother and my brother. That money could change everything for us." Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. "I don't know what to do. I don't want to leave Leo." Adrian studied her for a long moment. He saw the torment in her eyes, the pull between duty and love. His voice lowered. "The most important question is, what happens to my son if you leave?" Tears welled in her eyes. "He would be devastated. He trusts me as much as himself. Just thinking of leaving him already breaks my heart." Adrian stepped closer, his expression resolute. "Then I won't let it happen. I'll ensure your mother and brother are cared for. I'll match or surpass Marcus's offer. But more importantly, Rosa, you need to know something. You are no longer an employee in this house. You are part of this family." Her shoulders trembled. She whispered through tears, "I will stay. For Leo. For everything." The decision sealed itself in that moment, though both knew the battle was not over. The outside world would continue to press, but inside these walls, the bond was unshakable. The following week, the garden became the center of their lives once more. Rosa introduced new routines, stepping between cones, climbing short stairs, holding stretches until Leo's legs quivered. Adrian was always there, sometimes holding a stopwatch, sometimes simply cheering, but always present. One morning, Leo managed 4 steps without crutches. He collapsed into Adrian's arms with laughter instead of tears. "Dad, did you see? 4 whole steps." Adrian's voice shook as he answered, "I saw, son, and I've never been prouder." But with each victory came heavier shadows. Rosa's mother fell ill from overwork. Her brother Carlos struggled at school, and bills piled up despite her sacrifices. Late at night, Adrian found her in the kitchen, staring at an unopened letter. "What is it?" Adrian asked. She tried to hide it, but he gently took the envelope from her hand. Medical bills, numbers that would crush any ordinary family. "You should have told me sooner," he said firmly. "I didn't want to burden you," she whispered. Adrian's voice softened. "You've carried enough burdens. From now on, we carry them together." She looked up at him, her eyes wide, filled with gratitude and fear. "Why would you do all this for me?" He hesitated, then spoke with quiet honesty. "Because you've done more for my son than I ever managed. Because you deserve more than a life of scraping by when you have so much to give." The silence stretched between them, heavy yet warm. Rosa lowered her gaze, whispering only, "Thank you." Outside, forces did not rest. Marcus sent another offer, this time directly to Rosa's family. Her brother Carlos came home one evening, waving a letter. "They say if you work for them, they'll pay for Mum's treatment, for my school, for everything." His young voice carried desperation. "Rosa, maybe you should accept." She held the paper, her hands trembling. "Carlos, I can't leave Leo. He needs me." "But we need you too," he pleaded. That night, Rosa cried silently on the bus ride back to the mansion. She stepped through the doors with swollen eyes, trying to compose herself. Adrian was waiting in the hall. "You're thinking of leaving," he said quietly. Her lips trembled. "I don't know what to do. My family depends on me. If I walk away from this offer, am I being selfish?" Adrian's voice was steady, though his chest burned. "No. Selfishness would be abandoning what matters most. Rosa, listen to me. I'll take care of your family, your mother, your brother, everything. You will not have to choose between them and Leo." She shook her head in disbelief. "You would do that? Why?" "Because you are family," he said firmly, "and because my son cannot lose the person who gave him hope." Her tears broke free, running down her cheeks. "Then I stay. No matter what the world offers, I stay." The following morning, Leo bounded into the garden with unusual energy, his crutches tapping like a drumbeat. "Dad! Tia Rosa! Watch this!" He set the crutches aside, wobbling dangerously but managing 5 steps before tumbling forward. Adrian caught him, lifting him high. "You're flying now," he said, his voice thick with pride. Leo laughed, clinging to both of them. "We're the dream team. Nobody can break us apart." Rosa pressed her hand to her heart, her tears hidden behind her smile. She knew how close she had come to walking away. But here, in this garden, with Adrian and Leo, she understood. No amount of gold could outweigh what they had built together. That night, as Adrian stood at his study window, he thought about Marcus's words. "Everything is for discussion." For the first time in his career, he realized there were things that could not be bargained, things that could not be bought, and Rosa Alvarez was one of them. The summer mornings grew warmer, and with them, Leo's determination sharpened. Every day the garden became a battleground. Rosa Alvarez laid out the mats, adjusted the wooden bars, and prepared the small cones she had crafted from household items. Adrian Cole sat nearby, often with a stopwatch in hand, though his real task was watching every tremble and every spark in his son's eyes. "Ready, little warrior?" Rosa asked one morning as Leo gripped the bars. "I'm ready," Leo answered, his voice tight with both fear and excitement. Adrian leaned forward, speaking softly. "Take your time, son. No need to rush." Leo nodded, and the challenge began. Step by step he shifted his weight forward. His legs shook, his arms strained, but he moved. By the time he reached the end of the bars, his breath came in gasps, yet his face glowed with pride. "I did it!" Leo shouted triumphantly. "I walked all the way without falling." Adrian stood and scooped him up. "You're stronger than I ever imagined," he said, holding him close. Rosa clapped softly, her smile warm. "One day, Leo, you won't even need the bars." The boy's eyes widened with hope. "Do you really think so?" Rosa answered firmly. "I know so." Each session pushed Leo further. Stretches lasted longer, the balance exercises grew tougher, and the steps without crutches became more frequent. Adrian watched with equal parts awe and fear. Every stumble made his heart lurch, but every recovery filled him with pride. One afternoon, as Leo attempted to climb 3 small stairs, his legs buckled. He fell to his knees, the thud echoing across the garden. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Leo's face twisted with pain, his eyes glistening. Adrian rushed forward, panic in his voice. "Leo, are you hurt?" The boy clenched his fists, fighting tears. "I'm not giving up," he shouted. Rosa knelt beside him, her voice calm but firm. "That's right. Warriors fall, but they rise again. Come on, try once more." Adrian hesitated. His instinct was to pull his son into his arms and end the exercise. But then he saw the fire in Leo's eyes, and he forced himself to step back. Leo grabbed the railing and pushed himself up. His legs trembled, his arms shook, but he climbed 1 step, then 2, then 3. At the top he turned and grinned. "I did it. I beat the stairs." Adrian's throat tightened. He applauded with genuine joy. "Yes, you did. You beat them." That evening, Adrian found Rosa in the kitchen washing dishes with her sleeves rolled high. He leaned against the counter, his tone quiet. "If I had stopped him earlier today, he never would have reached the top." Rosa nodded without looking up. "Sometimes love makes us afraid to let go, but strength only grows when tested." He studied her face, realizing again how much she had given to his son. "You always know the right words," he said softly. She glanced at him, her eyes reflecting both humility and hidden emotion. "I only know what I learned from my brother. Struggles teach lessons books never can." The weeks rolled by, each one filled with new challenges. Leo's balance improved, his steps grew steadier, and his laughter echoed through the once cold mansion. Adrian no longer rose before dawn for work. Instead, he rose for breakfast with his son, for mornings in the garden, for the sound of Rosa's voice guiding exercises. But progress was not without pain. One morning, Leo collapsed after only a few seconds of standing. He pounded his fists against the grass, tears spilling. "It's not fair. Why can't I be like the other kids?" Adrian's heart cracked. He knelt beside him, his voice trembling. "Leo, listen to me. You are like no other kid. You're stronger. Every step you take is a victory most people will never understand." Rosa added softly, "Pain doesn't mean weakness. Pain means you're fighting, and you never fight alone." Leo sniffled, looking from one to the other. "Promise you'll both stay with me?" Adrian wrapped his arms around him. "Always. We're the dream team, remember?" The boy smiled weakly, but the light returned to his eyes. Later that day, as Rosa prepared dinner, Adrian lingered in the doorway. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "I don't know what I'd do without you here." She looked startled. "I'm only doing what's right for Leo." Adrian stepped closer. It's more than that. You've given him hope. And me as well." For a long moment they stood in silence, the air between them heavy with unspoken words. Rosa lowered her gaze, busying herself with stirring a pot, but her cheeks flushed faintly. The following week brought a turning point. Rosa announced in the garden, "Today we'll try something new. Leo, you're going to take steps without the bars. Just me nearby to steady you." Leo's eyes widened with both fear and excitement. "Without anything?" Adrian knelt in front of him. "You can do it, champ. I'll be right here." Leo took a deep breath, set his crutches aside, and placed one foot forward. His legs wobbled, his arms flailed, but he moved, one step, then another, then a third. At the fourth, he stumbled forward, straight into Adrian's waiting arms. "I did it!" Leo cried, laughing through tears. "I walked." Adrian's embrace was fierce. "Yes, you did, and I've never been prouder." Rosa's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming freely. "You truly are a warrior, Leo." The garden rang with laughter, brighter than any applause Adrian had ever received in his career. In that moment, he knew no skyscraper or contract could rival the joy of watching his son walk. That night, as Leo slept, Adrian stood at the window of his study. The city skyline glowed in the distance, but for the first time it felt meaningless. Behind him, the house was alive with warmth, because of Rosa, because of Leo, because of the fight they waged together. He whispered into the silence, "This is the real war, and we're winning." The crisp air of early autumn settled over the mansion's garden, scattering golden leaves across the grass where Leo trained each morning. The boy's steps had grown firmer, his balance steadier, but his voice just as eager. Every stumble came with laughter now, not tears, and every victory ended with him declaring, "The dream team wins again." Adrian Cole watched from the bench, the stopwatch forgotten in his hand. His eyes no longer measured seconds. They measured smiles. One evening, after Leo had been tucked into bed, Adrian wandered into the garden alone. He found Rosa Alvarez seated on the wooden bench, gazing at the stars above. The moonlight softened her features, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Adrian cleared his throat gently. "You like the night sky?" She turned, startled, then nodded. "It reminds me of home, back when my brother and I would sit outside, talking about dreams we couldn't afford to chase." Adrian sat beside her, the bench creaking under his weight. His voice was quiet. "It's been so long since I've seen Leo smile like this, and it's been just as long since I've felt alive." Her eyes shimmered. "That's because of you. He needs his father more than anything. I only played a small part." Adrian shook his head. "No, Rosa. You brought back the light I thought I'd lost forever." Her heart skipped at the words. She pressed her lips together, unsure how to respond, her pulse racing. They sat in silence, the night air thick with unspoken truths. In the following days, Adrian found himself noticing details he had long ignored. The way Rosa hummed softly while cooking, the care she put into folding Leo's clothes, the patience in her eyes as she guided every careful step in the garden. One morning, as Leo balanced for nearly a full minute without crutches, Adrian caught himself clapping louder than anyone. Rosa turned toward him, her smile radiant, and he felt something stir that he had not allowed since Eleanor's death. That evening, after dinner, Adrian asked Rosa to stay in the living room while Leo drew in his bedroom. The fire crackled softly, casting golden light on her face. "Rosa," Adrian began, his voice lower than usual, "I've been thinking a lot about Leo, about this family, and about you." She lifted her head slightly, her heart racing. "What about me?" Adrian drew in a breath, his gaze unwavering. "I've lost so much. I closed my heart for a long time. But then you came, bringing back Leo's laughter, and mine as well. Somewhere between grief and silence, I found feelings I can't deny. Rosa, I care for you." She froze, her lips parting with no words. Her heart fluttered with both joy and fear. Finally, she shook her head. "Adrian, that can't be. You're a billionaire and I'm just me. People will never accept it." "I don't care what society thinks," Adrian said flatly, leaning closer. "The only things that matter to me are Leo, this family, and you. You're not just part of our lives, you are the heart of it." Her eyes filled with tears. She turned away, whispering, "I'm afraid. If I say yes, the world will turn against you." Adrian placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "Then we'll face it together. I once thought I could fight life's battles alone. But now I know I don't want to continue without you by my side." The walls around her heart began to crumble. She didn't answer, but the tears glistening on her cheeks spoke for her. Over the next weeks, the bond between them deepened quietly. Adrian no longer hid his admiration. Sometimes, while Leo practiced, his eyes lingered on Rosa, filled with a warmth that spoke louder than words. One afternoon, Leo looked up from his drawing and said with innocent certainty, "Now I have both my superhero and my coach right here with me." Adrian and Rosa exchanged a glance, their smiles betraying emotions they had not yet voiced aloud. The gossip outside grew louder. Newspapers speculated, society whispered, but Adrian paid no attention. His world had shifted. His mornings were for Leo's steps, his evenings for quiet conversations with Rosa, and his nights for dreams he thought had died with his wife. One evening, after Leo was asleep, Adrian found Rosa in the library, dusting the shelves. He closed the door gently and spoke. "Rosa, I need to ask, do you feel the same as I do?" Her hand froze on a book. Slowly she turned, her voice trembling. "Adrian, I'm not blind. I see how you look at me. And I feel something too. But I'm terrified of what it means." He stepped closer, his eyes steady. "It means we've been given another chance at life. It means love can be born even from loss." Rosa's breath caught. "And what about Elena? What about what people will say?" Adrian's voice softened. "Elena will always be a part of me, but she would never want me to live in shadows forever. As for people, let them talk. The only voices that matter are ours, and Leo's." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Rosa lowered her gaze, whispering, "I don't know if I'm strong enough." Adrian reached out, lifting her chin gently. "You are stronger than you believe. You've proven it every day with my son. And now, I need you to believe it for yourself." Her tears spilled freely, but a faint smile curved her lips. Maybe I can try." Adrian's heart surged with relief. He didn't press further. Instead, he stood beside her in quiet companionship, the firelight dancing across their faces. That night, as he looked in on Leo sleeping peacefully, Adrian realized the truth. His son had found his strength, and in Rosa, he had found his own. Spring arrived, carrying with it the scent of blooming flowers and the promise of renewal. The mansion, once a mausoleum of marble and silence, now breathed with life. Each morning the sound of laughter drifted from the garden where Leo trained. Each evening the kitchen rang with the clatter of dishes and Rosa's soft humming. Adrian Cole stood at the window one morning, watching Leo take 6 careful steps without his crutches. Rosa clapped beside him, her encouragement echoing like music. Adrian felt the weight of skyscrapers and boardrooms lift from his shoulders. For the first time, he understood. His fortune meant nothing compared to this fragile miracle unfolding in the grass. One afternoon, Leo burst into the living room, his face glowing. "Dad, today I walked 6 steps all by myself. Tia Rosa says tomorrow I can try even more." Adrian bent down and hugged him tightly. "That's incredible, son. I'm so proud of you." He glanced toward Rosa, who stood in the doorway with a gentle smile. Their eyes met, and in that moment both knew they were sharing something extraordinary. The bond among the three grew stronger. Leo often called them his dream team, explaining with giddy certainty, "Dad is the superhero, Rosa is the coach, and I'm the little warrior." The innocence of his joy wrapped them all in a warmth no wealth could replicate. But Adrian found himself watching Rosa more often, when she prepared breakfast, when she guided Leo, when she stood quietly in the garden at dusk. She didn't belong to the glittering world of high society, and yet she carried a peace he had never found in that world. One evening, when Leo had already gone to bed, Adrian walked into the garden. Rosa was seated on the wooden bench, her gaze lifted to the stars. He hesitated before sitting beside her. "You know," Adrian said softly, "it's been so long since I felt alive. Since Elena passed, I thought life would only ever be numbers and silence. But with you here, everything is different." Rosa turned to him, her eyes shimmering. "Adrian, that's because of you. Leo needs you. He always has. I only filled the gaps where I could." Adrian shook his head firmly. "No, Rosa. You brought back the light I thought I had lost forever." Her heart raced. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, silence stretched between them, warm and heavy. Days passed, and Adrian could no longer deny what he felt. One night, after Leo had been tucked in, he asked Rosa to stay in the living room. The fire cast a soft glow across her face. "Rosa," he began, his voice thick with sincerity, "I've been thinking about us, about this family, and about what I truly want for the future. I can't ignore it anymore. I love you." Rosa froze, her lips parting in shock. Her voice trembled. "Adrian, you can't say that. You're a billionaire and I'm just me. People will never accept it." "I don't care what people think," Adrian said flatly, his eyes steady. "The only things that matter to me are Leo, you, and the life we've built together. You're not just part of this family. You are its heart." Tears welled in her eyes. She turned away, whispering, "I'm afraid. If I say yes, the world will turn against you." Adrian reached for her hand, his tone resolute. "Then we'll face it together. I once thought I could fight life's battles alone, but I was wrong. I don't want a life without you by my side." The walls around her heart crumbled. She whispered through tears, "Adrian, I feel the same. I just don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are," he answered gently. "You've proven it every day with my son. Now I need you to believe it for yourself." From that night onward, their bond was no longer hidden. Though whispers in high society grew louder, Adrian paid them no attention. Every time Leo saw them laughing together, he shouted proudly, "Now I have both my superhero and my coach right here with me." One spring evening, Adrian sat in the garden, the same place where Leo had taken his first steps without crutches. Warm, golden lights glowed around them. He held Rosa's hand and spoke with steady eyes. "Rosa, I once thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone, buried in work. But you and Leo have shown me the truth. The most valuable thing in the world isn't skyscrapers or contracts. It's family. Will you marry me?" Rosa froze, tears flooding her eyes. She nodded, unable to form words, and squeezed his hand tightly. Adrian smiled, his voice breaking with emotion. "From now on, we'll build a true family together." The wedding day arrived quietly. Instead of a lavish ballroom, Adrian chose the garden behind the mansion, the very place where Leo had once stumbled into his arms in triumph. Guests were few, close friends and colleagues who respected his decision. Leo wore a tiny suit and walked proudly, his crutches tucked under his arms. He beamed as he held Rosa's hand and led her down the flower-strewn path. His voice rang out with excitement. Miss Rosa, today I give you to Dad. The words nearly broke her heart with joy. When the vows came, Adrian looked straight into her eyes. I, Adrian Cole, promise to love and cherish Rosa Alvarez, not only as my wife, but as the one who gave me and my son a reason to live. I vow to place this family above all else. Rosa's voice trembled as she answered, I, Rosa Alvarez, promise to stand by Adrian and Leo in joy and in hardship. I'm not here to replace anyone, but to build a home where love is the foundation. As rings were exchanged, Leo clapped his hands, shouting, Now we really are the dream team. Laughter rippled through the garden, mingling with tears of joy. Adrian embraced Rosa and whispered, At last, we've found our new path. That night, beneath a sky full of stars, the Cole family began their new chapter. Not just the story of a cold billionaire or a kind-hearted maid, but of a family healed by love, bound by trust, and blessed by the small miracles that come from the human heart. The mansion, once an echo of emptiness, was now a house filled with light. And so ends the journey of a man who learned that no empire is worth more than his son's smile, and of a family born from strength, hope, and love. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment sharing the moment that touched you the most. Your support keeps stories like this alive.